Chapter 1. The Mission That Went Too Far. Derek Whitaker adjusted his translator device as he descended from the sleek Earth Alliance shuttle onto the vibrant surface of Zephra. The air shimmered with hues of deep greens and blues, the twin suns painting the sky in shades unfamiliar to human eyes. Around him, the towering spires of the Vesh-era capital, Volatar, loomed with intricate carvings and golden hues, a testament to a species with millennia of advanced culture. Derek, a seasoned diplomat for Earth's Interstellar Council, had been sent to broker a tentative alliance with the Vesh-era Dominion. The task was daunting. The Vesh-erans, a proud and combative feline-like species, were notorious for their strict traditions and skepticism toward outsiders. But Earth needed allies in this volatile sector of space, and Derek was known for his ability to navigate even the most precarious situations. As he stepped into the Grand Plaza, he was met with a delegation of Vesh-eran dignitaries, their sleek forms draped in ceremonial silks that highlighted their vibrant fur and elegant physiques. Leading them was Queen Talris, her deep silver fur streaked with royal crimson markings. Beside her, the young Princess Lasara stood, her violet eyes sharp and assessing. "Human," Queen Talris spoke, her voice carrying the weight of authority through the translator. "You tread on sacred ground. Your words and actions will determine if you leave as a friend or foe." Derek bowed respectfully, his expression calm despite the weight of her words. "Your Majesty, I come in the spirit of peace and mutual understanding. Earth seeks cooperation, not conflict." The Queen's gaze was unreadable, but a faint flick of her tail betrayed her intrigue. However, it was Lasara who stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Earth speaks of peace, yet your history is one of conquest and destruction. Why should we trust you?" Derek met her gaze evenly, noting the fiery determination in her expression. "Every species has its past, Princess. What defines us is the path we choose moving forward. I am here to offer a hand of partnership, not to dwell on old wounds." For a moment, silence hung between them before Lasara turned away with a huff. "We shall see." The negotiations began that afternoon in the Great Hall, a massive chamber adorned with tapestries depicting Vesh-eran legends. The discussions were intense, with the Vesh-eran Council voicing concerns about human intentions. Derek countered with Earth's technological offerings and assurances of mutual benefit. However, it was clear that the Vesh-erans' trust would not be easily earned. That evening, a grand feast was held in Derek's honor. The banquet hall was alive with the hum of conversation and the clinking of crystal goblets. Exotic Vesh-eran dishes adorned the long tables, their vibrant colors and unfamiliar aromas enticing yet intimidating to the human palate. Derek found himself seated beside Lasara, her presence both a challenge and a curiosity. "You hold yourself well, human," Lasara remarked, her tone laced with both admiration and skepticism. "But words alone will not win our trust." Derek smiled, lifting his goblet. "Trust is not given lightly, Princess. It must be earned, step by step." Lasara studied him for a moment before raising her own goblet. "A wise answer. Let us see if your actions match your words." Unbeknownst to Derek, the Vesh-eran wine he consumed was infused with pheromones, a subtle but potent substance that heightened senses and emotions. As the night wore on, he felt an uncharacteristic warmth, a magnetic pull toward Lasara. She, too, seemed affected, her usual guarded demeanor softening as the evening progressed. As the feast concluded, Derek and Lasara found themselves alone in one of the palace's ornate gardens. The air was thick with the fragrance of alien flora, the bioluminescent plants casting a soft glow. Their conversation flowed more freely now, a mix of banter and shared vulnerability. "You are unlike most humans I've read about," Lasara admitted, her voice quieter now. "There is sincerity in your words. And you're not as cold as you'd like others to believe," Derek replied, a teasing smile on his lips. "Beneath the tough exterior, there's a compassionate heart." Lasara's ears flicked in annoyance, but there was a faint smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "Careful, human. Flattery will not get you far with me." Their laughter echoed softly in the garden, the barriers between them slowly crumbling. But the moment was abruptly interrupted by a faint hum of approaching footsteps. Lasara's expression hardened as she stepped back, the regal mask slipping back into place. "Enough for tonight, human," she said, her voice cool once more. You should return to your quarters. Derek nodded, sensing the shift in her tone. Good night, princess. Perhaps tomorrow, we'll make more progress both in negotiations and understanding one another. Lysara watched him leave, her gaze lingering longer than she intended. As the doors closed behind him, she exhaled deeply, her thoughts a whirlwind. Something about Derek unsettled her, yet she couldn't deny the strange connection she felt, a connection both forbidden and dangerous. The next day, the negotiations resumed, but the atmosphere was markedly different. The Vesharan Council remained skeptical, their sharp questions and probing remarks challenging Derek at every turn. Yet, he held his ground, his responses measured and confident. By midday, however, a sudden announcement disrupted the proceedings. A Vesharan dignitary entered the hall, his expression grim. A skirmish has broken out along our eastern borders. Rebel forces are attempting to breach our defenses. Queen Talris rose, her commanding presence silencing the murmurs that rippled through the hall. We must act swiftly. General Vryk, deploy the elite guards to secure the border. Lysara, who had been silently observing the negotiations, stepped forward. I request permission to join the mission, Mother. As a warrior of our people, it is my duty. The queen hesitated, her protective instincts clashing with her respect for Lysara's determination. Very well, but you will travel with caution. Derek, sensing an opportunity to prove Earth's commitment to the Alliance, spoke up. Your Majesty, allow me to accompany the princess. My experience in conflict resolution may be of use. The room fell silent, the suggestion met with a mix of surprise and skepticism. Lysara turned to him, her violet eyes narrowing. You would risk your life for a people who do not yet trust you? Derek met her gaze evenly. Building trust requires more than words. Let me show you that Earth is sincere in its intentions. After a moment of contemplation, the queen nodded. Very well. But know this, human failure will not be tolerated. The journey to the eastern border was tense, the atmosphere within the transport vessel thick with unspoken tension. Lysara remained aloof, her focus on the mission ahead. Derek, meanwhile, prepared himself for the challenges that lay ahead, his mind racing with strategies to navigate both the battlefield and the complexities of Vesharan politics. When they arrived at the conflict zone, the sight was both awe-inspiring and sobering. The lush jungle terrain was marred by the signs of battle-scorched earth, toppled trees, and the distant sounds of gunfire. The rebel forces, a rogue faction of Vesharans opposed to the Queen's rule, were entrenched in fortified positions, their numbers formidable. As the Vesharan troops prepared for engagement, Derek and Lysara found themselves at the forefront of the operation. Despite her initial skepticism, Lysara couldn't help but admire Derek's composure and resourcefulness. He worked alongside the Vesharan commanders, analyzing the battlefield and devising strategies that combined human ingenuity with Vesharan might. The battle was intense, the air filled with the roar of weapons and the cries of combatants. Derek and Lysara fought side by side, their partnership growing stronger with each passing moment. Together, they navigated the chaos, their combined efforts turning the tide in favor of the Queen's forces. As the sun set and the dust settled, the rebel forces were defeated, their leaders captured. The victory was hard-earned, but it was a testament to the strength of unity between humans and Vesharans. That night, as they rested in the aftermath of the battle, Derek and Lysara found themselves alone once more. The firelight cast warm shadows across their faces as they spoke, their words carrying a newfound sense of mutual respect and understanding. You surprised me today, human, Lysara admitted, her tone softer than before. You fought not for glory, but for the lives of those around you. That is rare. Derek smiled, his exhaustion evident, but his resolve unwavering. I fight for what I believe in, princess, and I believe in the potential of our alliance. Lysara studied him for a moment before nodding. Perhaps there is hope for us after all. As the night deepened, the connection between them grew stronger, their bond forged in the fires of battle. Unbeknownst to them, however, the seeds of a new challenge were already being sown, one that would test their newfound alliance and change their lives forever. Chapter 2. The Unforeseen Consequences. The victory at the eastern border was heralded as a turning point in Earth-Veshara relations. Derek's bravery and tactical skill earned him grudging respect from the Vesharan Council, while Lysara's leadership solidified her reputation as a capable warrior princess. However, amidst the celebrations back in Volatar, Derek and Lysara found themselves drawn into a web of complications neither could have anticipated. The following morning, Derek awoke to the sound of soft chimes emanating from his quarters. The palace accommodations, though luxurious, still felt alien quite literally. The walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescence, casting a soothing teal glow. As he rose and dressed, the events of the previous days played over in his mind. He had done what he came to do, prove Earth's sincerity. Yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that his connection with Lysara had crossed an unspoken boundary. Just as he finished adjusting his diplomatic uniform, a knock echoed through the chamber door. Before he could answer, the door slid open, revealing Lysara. She stood in a flowing silver gown, her usually stoic face tinged with an unusual intensity. "We need to talk," she said, her voice clipped. Derek gestured for her to enter, surprised by her directness. "Of course. Is something wrong?" Her violet eyes darted around the room as if ensuring their privacy before fixing on him. "What happened in the gardens during the feast," she began, her tone low, "and later on the battlefield, wasn't entirely natural." Derek raised an eyebrow, uncertain of what she meant. "I'm not sure I follow." Lysara sighed, her tail flicking in agitation. "The Vesh Aaron wine you drank during the feast contained pheromones. It was a mistake. Our servers were supposed to offer a human-safe variant, but apparently there was a mix-up." The revelation hit Derek like a punch to the gut. "You're saying I was drugged?" "Not exactly," Lysara replied quickly, her ears flattening slightly. "It doesn't impair judgment, but it does heighten certain instincts. For Vesh Aarons, it amplifies our mating cycles." Derek's mind raced as he pieced together the implications. The magnetic pull he'd felt toward Lysara, the undeniable chemistry, they hadn't been entirely natural. "And you?" he asked cautiously. "Were you affected?" Lysara's silence was answer enough. Her gaze dropped, and for a moment, the confident princess looked almost vulnerable. "I wasn't immune to it," she admitted. "But what concerns me now is the consequence of our moment of weakness." "Consequence?" Derek echoed, a sinking feeling forming in his chest. Lysara hesitated, then took a step closer. "Derek, the Vesh Aaron reproductive process is efficient. When we mate during our cycles, conception is almost guaranteed." The words hung in the air, heavy and inescapable. Derek stared at her, struggling to process the enormity of what she was saying. "Are you telling me you're—" "Yes," Lysara said bluntly, her violet eyes locking onto his. "I'm carrying your child." The days that followed were a whirlwind of emotions and political maneuvering. Derek's initial shock gave way to a deep sense of responsibility. Despite the unorthodox circumstances, he couldn't abandon Lysara or the life they had inadvertently created. However, their situation was far from simple. The news of Lysara's pregnancy couldn't remain hidden for long. When the Queen discovered the truth, her reaction was as fiery as Derek had feared. Queen Talris summoned both of them to the throne room, her silver fur bristling with barely contained rage. "You dare defile my daughter under the guise of diplomacy?" she spat, her voice echoing through the grand chamber. "This is an affront to the Vesh Aaron crown." Derek stepped forward, his tone calm but firm. "Your Majesty, I take full responsibility for my actions. I will do whatever it takes to make amends." "And what would you propose, human?" the Queen demanded. This alliance was already fragile. Now, you've complicated matters beyond repair. Before Derek could respond, Lysara interjected. "Mother, enough. This was not solely his doing. I was just as involved, and I will not allow you to place the blame entirely on him." Queen Talris glared at her daughter, her eyes blazing. "You speak out of turn, Lysara. This human dash." "This human," Lysara interrupted, her voice rising, "fought beside us, risked his life for our people, and has shown nothing but respect. If you cannot see his worth, then you are blind to the very qualities we claim to value as Vesh Aarons." The Queen's fury wavered, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement of her daughter's defiance. After a long silence, she spoke again, her tone cooler but still sharp. "Very well. If you are so determined to defend him, then he will have the chance to prove himself. What do you mean? Derek asked cautiously. In Vesharan tradition, the queen explained, a union of this nature must be legitimized through the trial of bonds. If you wish to stand beside my daughter, you will face the trial. Fail, and you will be banished from our domain forever. Derek nodded without hesitation. I accept. The trial of bonds was an ancient Vesharan rite designed to test the strength of a prospective mate's character, courage, and loyalty. Few outsiders had ever attempted it, and even fewer had succeeded. The trial consisted of 3 challenges, each designed to push Derek to his limits physically, mentally, and emotionally. The first challenge, the Path of Courage, required Derek to traverse a labyrinth filled with traps and predators native to Zephra's jungles. Armed with only a crude blade, he relied on his wits and resourcefulness to navigate the perilous terrain. By the time he emerged, battered but victorious, even the skeptical Vesharan Council began to take notice. The second challenge, the Test of Wisdom, was a grueling mental trial in which Derek had to solve intricate puzzles within a limited time frame. The puzzles drew upon Vesharan history and logic, forcing him to think like one of their own. Despite the pressure, he managed to complete the task, earning begrudging respect from the queen herself. The final challenge, the Trial of Devotion, was the most personal and the most grueling. Derek was placed in a simulated scenario where he had to choose between saving Lysara and preserving Earth's alliance with the Vesharans. The simulation was designed to exploit his deepest fears and test his loyalty. In the end, he chose Lysara, declaring that without her, the alliance would mean nothing. When he emerged from the final trial, Lysara was waiting for him, her violet eyes shimmering with emotion. You did it, she said softly. I told you, Derek replied with a tired smile. I'll do whatever it takes. As the queen announced Derek's success to the gathered Vesharans, a wave of applause and cheers erupted. The alliance between Earth and the Veshara Dominion was stronger than ever, and for the first time, Derek felt like he had truly earned his place among them. Chapter 3. A New Beginning. Derek's victory in the Trial of Bonds was a momentous occasion. The Vesharan people, initially skeptical of him as an outsider, now saw him as more than just a human diplomat. He was someone who had risked everything to stand beside their princess and prove his worth, earning their respect through courage, intellect, and unwavering devotion. As the celebrations began, Derek found himself in the grand ceremonial hall once again, though this time the atmosphere was entirely different. Where once there had been tension and skepticism, now there was warmth and acceptance. The queen herself, though still stern, had softened considerably toward him. You have proven yourself, Derek Whitaker, Queen Talris said as she approached him. Her silver fur glinted under the soft glow of the hall's chandeliers. You've shown courage where others would falter and loyalty where others would waver. For that, I will honor the bond between you and my daughter. Derek bowed respectfully, his voice calm but earnest. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not take this responsibility lightly. The queen nodded, her gaze shifting to Lysara, who stood nearby. My daughter has always been headstrong, but she has chosen wisely. See that you do not fail her or our people. Derek met Lysara's eyes, and for a moment, the rest of the room seemed to fade away. There was a newfound understanding between them, a connection forged not only by circumstance but by mutual respect and admiration. The challenges of parenthood. As the days turned into weeks, Derek began to adjust to his new role. While the political alliance between Earth and the Veshara Dominion flourished, his personal life became increasingly complex. Lysara's pregnancy progressed rapidly, a trait unique to Vesharans. Within weeks, she was already showing signs of carrying their child. Despite their growing bond, there were challenges neither of them had anticipated. Vesharan customs surrounding pregnancy and parenting were vastly different from human traditions. Derek struggled to navigate the intricate rituals and expectations placed upon him as the prospective father of a royal child. One such ritual involved the ceremony of the unborn, a sacred event where the father-to-be was required to publicly pledge his devotion to both the mother and the child. The ceremony was held in the Temple of the Firstborn, an ancient structure adorned with carvings depicting the history of the Vesharan lineage. Dressed in traditional Vesharan robes, Derek stood before the gathered crowd, his heart pounding. Lysara stood beside him, her expression calm but her hand gripping his for reassurance. I, Derek Whitaker, he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. Swear to protect and cherish both my bondmate and our child. I pledge my life to their happiness and well-being, and I vow to honor the traditions of the Vesharan people. As his words echoed through the temple, the crowd erupted in applause. Lasara's grip on his hand tightened, and when he looked at her, he saw a flicker of emotion in her normally guarded expression. You did well, she said quietly as they left the temple. Perhaps you're more Vesharan than I thought. Derek smiled. I'm just trying not to embarrass you. Her laughter was soft but genuine, a sound he realized he wanted to hear more often. A threat emerges. Just as Derek and Lasara began to settle into their new reality, an unexpected threat loomed on the horizon. A faction of rogue Vesharans, opposed to the alliance with Earth, began to stir unrest within the Dominion. They saw Derek not as a diplomat or a hero, but as an interloper who had tainted their royal bloodline. The leader of the rogue faction, a former general named Karen, was a towering figure with a fierce reputation. He rallied his followers with fiery speeches, denouncing the Queen's decision to accept a human into the royal family. This alliance is a betrayal of our traditions, Karen roared during one such gathering. We are Vesharan warriors, not pawns of Earth's ambitions. We will not bow to a species that does not understand our ways. News of the growing rebellion reached the palace, and Queen Talris convened an emergency council. Derek and Lasara were present, their expressions grim as they listened to the reports. Karen is dangerous, one of the advisors said. He has the loyalty of several border regions, and his forces are well armed. We cannot allow this rebellion to gain momentum, the Queen declared. If Karen undermines the alliance, it could destabilize the entire Dominion. I'll go, Derek said suddenly, his voice cutting through the tense silence. The council turned to him in surprise, Lasara included. You would face Karen? The Queen asked, her tone skeptical. I've faced worse, Derek replied. Karen sees me as the problem, so let me be part of the solution. I can negotiate with him or stop him if I must. Lasara's eyes narrowed. You're not going alone. Derek turned to her, his expression firm but understanding. This isn't just about us, Lasara. It's about protecting what we've built for our child and for our people. Her jaw tightened, but she nodded. Then we do it together. The confrontation. The journey to Karen's stronghold was fraught with tension. Derek and Lasara traveled with a small contingent of loyal Vesharan warriors. Their mission is much about diplomacy as it was about preparing for a potential fight. When they arrived, they were met with hostility. Karen himself emerged to greet them, his imposing figure clad in battle armor. His golden fur glinted in the sunlight, and his piercing gaze locked onto Derek. So, this is the human who dares call himself one of us, Karen sneered. You're either very brave or very foolish. I'm here to prevent bloodshed, Derek replied evenly. This alliance is not a betrayal, it's a chance for both our peoples to thrive. Karen laughed bitterly. You think we need Earth? You think we need you? The Vesharan people were strong long before your kind arrived, and we will remain strong without you. Lasara stepped forward, her voice sharp. This isn't about strength, Karen. It's about survival. The galaxy is changing, and clinging to outdated traditions will only lead to our downfall. The confrontation escalated as words turned to threats. Despite Derek's efforts to negotiate, it became clear that Karen was unwilling to back down. The tension erupted into a battle, the rogue forces clashing with the Queen's loyalists. Amid the chaos, Derek and Lasara fought side by side, their bond tested once more. Together, they confronted Karen in a dramatic showdown that would determine the fate of the Alliance and their future. Chapter 4. A beautiful ending. The battle in Karen's stronghold raged with ferocity. Vesharan warriors clashed, their roars echoing through the dense jungle surrounding the fortress. Derek and Lasara fought side by side, a seamless unit of human ingenuity and Vesharan strength. The air was thick with the scent of burning vegetation and the metallic tang of blood, but their focus never wavered. Karen himself was a formidable opponent, towering over both of them. His golden fur streaked with battle scars, he wielded a plasma blade with the precision of a seasoned warrior. As Derek and Lasara approached, he turned to face them, his eyes blazing with contempt. So, the human thinks he can stand against me? Karen sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. You don't belong here, and you never will. Derek tightened his grip on his weapon, his gaze steady. This isn't just about me. It's about peace for both our peoples. And if I have to fight you to prove that, so be it. Lysara stepped forward, her violet eyes narrowing. You've lost sight of what it means to be Vesharan, Karen. Strength isn't about division. It's about unity. If you can't see that, then you're the one who doesn't belong. With a guttural roar, Karen lunged at them, his plasma blade cutting through the air. Derek and Lysara moved in unison, their training and instincts perfectly aligned. Lysara's agility allowed her to dodge Karen's strikes, creating openings for Derek to counter with his own calculated attacks. The battle was intense, the clash of weapons and raw energy creating a spectacle that drew the attention of both factions. Slowly but surely, Derek and Lysara gained the upper hand, their teamwork outmatching Karen's brute force. Finally, with a well-timed strike, Lysara disarmed him, her blade pointed at his throat. "It's over," she said firmly, her voice carrying the weight of authority. Karen's chest heaved as he glared at them, his defiance flickering like a dying flame. "You think this changes anything? The Vesharan people will never accept your alliance." "They already have," Derek said, stepping forward. "This fight isn't just about us, it's about proving that we're stronger together. And today, we've done that." The watching warriors, both loyalists and rebels, began to lower their weapons. The sight of Karen defeated, and at the mercy of a human and their princess, was enough to make even the most hardened skeptics reconsider their stance. Slowly, the tension in the air began to dissipate. A new dawn. With Karen's rebellion quelled, peace returned to the Veshara dominion. The queen, impressed by Derek and Lysara's efforts, extended a formal declaration of alliance with Earth. The treaty was signed in a grand ceremony, solidifying the bond between the two peoples and ushering in a new era of cooperation. For Derek and Lysara, however, the journey was far from over. Lysara's pregnancy continued to progress rapidly, and as the weeks turned into days, the time for the birth of their child approached. Despite the challenges they had faced, Derek found himself filled with a deep sense of anticipation and hope. The birthing ceremony, a sacred Vesharan tradition, was held in a private chamber within the palace. The room was adorned with soft, glowing crystals, their light casting a serene ambience. Derek stayed by Lysara's side throughout the process, offering words of encouragement and support. When their child was finally born, the moment was nothing short of miraculous. The infant, a perfect blend of human and Vesharan features, had Lysara's vibrant fur and Derek's expressive eyes. The child's presence seemed to radiate a sense of unity, a symbol of the bond that now tied their two worlds together. As Derek held his child for the first time, his heart swelled with a mixture of awe and love. Lysara, though visibly exhausted, smiled at him, her usual sharpness softened by the moment. "She's beautiful," Derek said softly, his voice filled with emotion. "She is," Lysara agreed, her gaze tender as she reached out to touch their daughter's tiny hand. "And she's proof that we can overcome anything. A future together." In the days that followed, Derek and Lysara found themselves adjusting to their new roles as parents. The challenges were many, but they faced them together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. The Vesharan people, once wary of their union, now embraced them as symbols of hope and progress. The queen, though still formidable, became an unexpected source of support. She took pride in her granddaughter, often visiting to share wisdom and stories from Vesharan history. Derek, in turn, began to learn more about Vesharan culture, immersing himself in their traditions and earning their respect in ways he hadn't imagined possible. As the alliance between Earth and the Veshara Dominion flourished, Derek and Lysara became ambassadors of their shared vision. Together, they traveled between worlds, advocating for unity and understanding. Their daughter, growing quickly, became a living testament to what could be achieved when differences were embraced rather than feared. The beautiful ending. One evening, as the three of them sat on the palace balcony overlooking the city of Volatar, Derek found himself reflecting on everything that had brought them to this moment. The trials, the battles, the sacrifices, all of it had been worth it. Lysara, seated beside him, seemed to sense his thoughts. "You're quiet tonight," she said, her tone teasing but warm. "Just thinking," Derek replied, his gaze fixed on the twin suns setting in the distance. "About how far we've come." Lasara smiled, her tail flicking lazily. And how much farther we have to go. But we'll face it together. Derek looked at her, his heart full. Always. As their daughter giggled in Lasara's arms, reaching for the glowing sky, Derek felt a profound sense of peace. Despite the challenges that lay ahead, he knew they had created something beautiful, a family, a future, and a legacy that would inspire generations to come.